Hale family was more than just relatives, they were a legacy. Every Sunday, without fail, the entire family gathered at the grandparents' estate. Long tables were filled with roasted chicken, fresh bread, laughter, and endless stories. Among the family, two cousins stood out, Ethan Hale and Michael Hale, though only 2 years apart. They had grown up like brothers, studying together, playing together, even dreaming of running the family business side by side one day. Ethan was the golden boy, tall, well-mannered, ambitious yet humble. He carried himself with quiet confidence. The elders admired him, the younger cousins looked up to him, and the family trusted his judgment. Michael, on the other hand, had always felt like he was chasing Ethan's shadow. He was fiery, quick-tempered, and driven by a need to prove himself. Though the family loved him, the constant comparison to Ethan often left him bitter inside. Even when he tried to hide it, things changed when Ethan got married. His wife, Sophia, was stunning, graceful, articulate, with an elegance that made her the center of every gathering. At first, she seemed like the perfect addition to the Hale family. She laughed at the elders' jokes, played with the children, and supported Ethan in every way. But behind her charming smile, Sophia observed everything. She noticed how everyone praised Ethan, his career milestones, his patience, his reliability. Even when she cooked a dish, people would say, "Ethan is lucky to have a wife like you." And slowly, admiration began to feel like insult. That night, as Sophia lay awake beside Ethan, she whispered to herself, "They think he's perfect, but I'll show them he isn't." The family was united. Yes, but cracks had begun to form, and no one could see them yet. First, Sophia tried to ignore it. She smiled when Ethan's uncles praised him. She laughed politely when his aunts said, "No man in this family is as reliable as Ethan." But each word was like a spark against dry wood. Slowly, the sparks became fire. At Sunday dinners, Sophia began noticing the subtle differences. When Ethan spoke, the table fell silent, listening with respect. When Michael spoke, people often interrupted or dismissed him. And when Sophia tried to join in, she was politely acknowledged, but the spotlight always went back to Ethan. Sophia's pride began to ache. Why is he always the center? Why do they worship him like a saint? Don't they see he's just a man? Her thoughts turned darker each day. She started watching Michael closely, the cousin who always stood in Ethan's shadow. She saw the frustration in his eyes, the way his jaw tightened whenever Ethan was praised. One evening, as the family gathered in the garden, Ethan shared news about a promotion at work. The whole family clapped and congratulated him. Michael forced a smile, but Sophia caught the flicker of envy on his face. Later that night, when she and Michael crossed paths in the kitchen, Sophia spoke softly, almost casually. "You must be tired of it." Michael frowned. "Tired of what?" "The way everyone treats Ethan like he's perfect. It's unfair, isn't it? They don't see your hard work. They don't see you." Michael hesitated, not wanting to admit it. But the seed had been planted. Sophia walked away with a faint smile. She had found the weakness, the crack in the family bond. All she had to do was widen it. And so, the seeds of jealousy began to grow, not just in her heart, but in Michael's too. Sophia knew one thing well: words were weapons. And in a family as close-knit as the Hales, even the smallest whisper could turn into a storm. She began subtly. During a family barbecue, when Ethan stepped away to take a phone call, Sophia leaned closer to Michael and murmured, "Have you ever noticed how secretive Ethan is? Always stepping outside, always hiding things on his phone." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Ethan? No, he's just private." Sophia shrugged, her voice laced with suggestion. Private, or hiding something? She didn't press further. She let the thought linger, knowing it would fester in Michael's mind. The next Sunday at dinner, Sophia dropped another seed, this time in front of Michael's wife. As the women cleared the table, Sophia sighed dramatically. "Sometimes I worry about Ethan. He's always working late, always meeting people I don't know. I'm sure it's nothing. But what if?" Michael's wife glanced at her. "What if what?" Sophia shook her head quickly, biting her lip. "Forget I said anything. I don't want to cause problems." The brilliance of her strategy was in the restraint. She never said too much, just enough to raise suspicion, enough to make others ask questions. And questions, she knew, were deadlier than accusations. Within weeks, The family's perception of Ethan began to shift. Little looks of doubt, whispers when he left the room. Michael, once his closest ally, started to pull away. Conversations that used to flow easily now felt strained. Sophia would smile sweetly across the table, watching it all unfold. One rumor at a time, she thought. That's all it takes to destroy a man. By now, the Hale family dinners didn't feel the same. Where once there was laughter and warmth, now there were stolen glances, awkward silences, and unspoken doubts. Ethan noticed it immediately. His cousin Michael, once his brother in all but name, had grown distant. He no longer sought Ethan's advice. He no longer laughed at their old inside jokes. Instead, his conversations were short, clipped, almost cold. One evening, after dinner, Ethan pulled Michael aside. "What's going on with you? Did I do something?" Ethan asked, concern in his eyes. Michael crossed his arms. "You tell me. Why don't you ever share what you're up to? Always these late nights, secret phone calls. What are you hiding, Ethan?" Ethan was stunned. "Hiding? Michael, you know me better than that. Everything I do is for this family. Why would you even think?" But Michael cut him off. "Because people talk, and maybe they're right." Ethan felt his chest tighten. People talk? He didn't know who was poisoning Michael's mind, but he could feel the walls of trust crumbling brick by brick. Across the room, Sophia watched the confrontation with a satisfied smile. She had lit the fire and now it was burning exactly as she had hoped. The rest of the family began noticing the tension too. During gatherings, Ethan would walk into a room and conversations would quiet. He caught his aunts and uncles exchanging uneasy looks, as if they didn't know whether to believe in him anymore. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt like an outsider in his own family. And Sophia? She had never looked more radiant. She played the role of the innocent wife, perfectly smiling, sympathetic, pretending to be caught in the middle. But inside, she was triumphant. They're finally doubting him. Soon, they'll turn against him completely. What she didn't know was that lies, no matter how carefully spun, always leave threads behind, and eventually, someone would pull them. Sophia believed she was untouchable. Her lies had spread like poison. Her whispers had taken root in the family's mind, and Ethan was now the one standing in the shadows. But arrogance always leaves cracks. One late evening, while Ethan was working late at the office, Sophia stayed home scrolling through her phone. She called one of her close friends, her voice filled with pride. "You won't believe how easy it's been." She laughed. "All I have to do is say a few words here and there, and they start doubting Ethan like crazy. Michael doesn't even trust him anymore. Can you imagine? Cousins who were like brothers now barely speaking. And all because of me." She laughed again, her voice sharp with triumph. What she didn't know was that Ethan's younger sister, Leela, had just walked into the hallway. Hearing Sophia's laughter, Leela froze, curiosity pulling her closer to the door. At first, she thought she misheard, but as Sophia's words grew bolder, Leela's face turned pale. "I'll ruin him completely," Sophia continued. "Soon, the whole family will see that golden boy for what he really is, a fraud. And when they do, Michael will be mine to control." Leela's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. With shaky fingers, she pressed record. Every word, every laugh, every poisonous promise captured. Her heart raced. She knew what this meant. The family's growing doubt wasn't real, it was manufactured. Ethan wasn't guilty of anything. He was the victim. The next Sunday dinner, the air was tense as usual. Ethan sat quietly, pushing food around his plate while whispers floated around him. But before anyone could speak, Leela stood up. "I need everyone to hear something," she said, her voice firm but trembling with emotion. She pressed play. Sophia's voice filled the dining room, sharp and undeniable. The laughter, the lies, the confession, it all played out like a blade cutting through silence. The room froze. Forks clattered against plates. Eyes widened. Ethan's chest tightened as he realized what he was hearing. Michael's face drained of color. He turned slowly toward his wife, betrayal burning in his eyes. Sophia's smile faltered for the first time, and in that single moment, the perfect mask she had worn for so long began to crack. The room was dead silent as Sophia's voice echoed from Leela's phone. Every word was a dagger, mocking, manipulative, dripping with venom. When the recording ended, The silence shattered into chaos. Michael stood up so quickly that his chair slammed against the floor. His eyes blazed with fury. "Is this true, Sophia?" he shouted, his voice trembling with rage. Sophia's hands shook. She forced a laugh, trying to salvage control. It's not what it sounds like. I was just what?" Ethan cut in, his voice calm but cold, sharper than steel. "Just destroying my reputation? Just turning my own family against me?" Sophia's face twisted, searching for words. "I did it for us, Michael. Don't you see? Everyone always praised Ethan, always compared you to him. I wanted you to finally get the respect you deserve." Michael's jaw clenched, betrayal written across his face. "Respect? You call this respect? You turned me against my own blood. You poisoned this family with your lies." The elders at the table shook their heads in disappointment. Ethan's mother whispered through tears, "How could you, Sophia? After everything we gave you, our love, our trust, you tried to rip us apart." Sophia's mask began to crumble. Her eyes darted desperately around the table, searching for an ally. But all she found were cold, accusing stares. Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady, controlled. "You thought lies would make you powerful. But lies don't last, Sophia. Truth always finds its way." Michael's fists tightened at his sides. "You didn't just betray Ethan. You betrayed me. You betrayed this entire family. And I will never forgive you for that." Sophia's lips trembled, but no words came. The empire of deceit she had built so carefully had collapsed in seconds. For the first time, she wasn't the one controlling the room. She was the one on trial. The night of the confrontation was only the beginning. Once the truth was out, Sophia's carefully built image of a perfect, loyal wife crumbled faster than she could contain it. Word spread through the family like wildfire. Cousins, uncles, aunts, everyone who once admired her beauty and grace now spoke of her with disgust. At family gatherings, no one wanted to sit near her. Conversations stopped when she entered a room. Where once she had basked in attention, now she walked in shadows of shame. Michael couldn't even look at her. For days, he avoided their home, staying late at work or sleeping in the guest room. When he did speak, his words were cold and sharp. "You didn't just ruin Ethan's name, you ruined mine. Do you realize how stupid you made me look in front of my family? I defended you. I believed you. And you played me like a fool." Sophia tried to cry, to beg, to plead, but Michael was unmoved. His respect for her was gone. And Ethan, though he had been vindicated, kept his distance. He wasn't cruel, but he no longer acknowledged her presence. To him, Sophia was invisible, a ghost of betrayal. But what truly destroyed Sophia was when Ethan revealed another truth. For weeks, he had been quietly gathering evidence of how Sophia had manipulated finances. Small, sneaky transfers she had convinced Michael to approve, all in the name of family expenses. But the records told a different story. Money redirected into her own secret accounts, hidden beneath layers of lies. When Ethan presented the documents to Michael, Sophia's last defense shattered. Michael's voice thundered across their living room. "You didn't just poison my family, you stole from me, from us, from everything I worked for." Sophia collapsed to the floor, sobbing, but Michael didn't flinch. The man who once loved her could only see a traitor sitting on the ground. Within weeks, divorce papers were filed. The family cut all ties. Sophia, once the shining jewel of the Hale gatherings, was left with nothing but her own shattered pride. She had tried to destroy Ethan. Instead, she had destroyed herself. Sophia thought the worst was behind her after Michael filed for divorce. She believed at least she could start over quietly. But Ethan wasn't finished. Revenge, after all, wasn't just about clearing his name, it was about making her pay for every lie, every wound. One crisp Monday morning, Sophia walked into a boutique, hoping to distract herself with shopping. As she reached the counter, whispers followed her. "That's her," someone murmured. "The woman who betrayed her husband and tried to ruin his cousin." Her face burned. She rushed out, heart racing. The whispers grew louder in the coming days, not just in the neighborhood but online. Ethan had carefully released pieces of her recorded confession, along with proof of her financial manipulation. The story spread like wildfire across social media. Sophia Hale, once admired for her elegance, was now infamous for betrayal. Michael didn't stop there. Using Ethan's evidence, He pressed charges for financial fraud. Court summons arrived at her door, and Sophia's hands shook as she read the words: fraud, theft, malicious intent. Her name was no longer associated with class or beauty. It was plastered across local newspapers, her face a symbol of deceit. At the hearing, she faced both Ethan and Michael. They stood side by side not as rivals, but as family united against her. Michael's voice was steady, but his words cut deep. You tried to break us apart, Sophia. Instead, you brought us closer than ever. You underestimated the power of truth. Sophia tried to defend herself, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements, voice recordings, witnesses, every piece tightened the noose around her carefully constructed lies. The judge's ruling was swift: restitution of the stolen funds, community service, and a public record of her crimes. For Sophia, it wasn't just punishment, it was humiliation. She had lost her marriage, her respect, her reputation, and now her freedom to walk the streets without shame. As she left the courthouse in tears, Ethan and Michael watched silently. For them, this wasn't cruelty, it was justice. Revenge wasn't about destroying her. It was about making sure she could never again destroy anyone else. The storm had passed, but its impact would never be forgotten. Months after the court ruling, the Hale family began to heal. The dinners that were once filled with tension now carried laughter again. Ethan, once the victim of Sophia's schemes, was now celebrated for his patience and resilience. His quiet strength had not only cleared his name, but also restored the family's unity. Michael, though scarred by betrayal, stood taller than ever. He had faced humiliation, heartbreak, and anger, but in the end, he found clarity. For the first time in years, he looked at Ethan not with rivalry but with brotherhood. One evening, he placed a hand on his cousin's shoulder and said, I should have trusted you from the beginning. Blood is thicker than lies. Ethan smiled faintly. We both lost time, Michael. Let's not lose any more. The family cheered for the reconciliation. It was a victory greater than revenge, it was restoration. As for Sophia, her fall was permanent. Stripped of wealth, respect, and the family she once tried to control, she lived alone in a small apartment on the edge of town. The woman who once commanded attention now avoided eye contact with strangers. Her beauty no longer drew admiration. It only reminded people of the scandal attached to her name. Yet, in her quiet solitude, Sophia faced a truth she had long denied. She had destroyed her own life with envy and greed. Revenge hadn't been forced upon her, it had been invited by her own actions. Sometimes late at night, she stared at old photographs of family gatherings, smiles, laughter, unity. Tears blurred her vision. She realized she had once held everything people truly desire: love, respect, belonging, and she had thrown it away. For Ethan and Michael, her downfall wasn't a celebration. It was a warning. Lies may glitter in the dark, but only truth shines in the light. The Hale family moved forward, stronger than ever, carrying the scars of betrayal but also the wisdom that came from it. And though Sophia's name became nothing more than a bitter memory, her story lived on as a reminder: greed divides, but truth always unites.